1. For context, in this, I'm a busker, which is the word for people who perform in public spaces for tips. I sing. Where I live, the rules around getting a permit vary from town to town, but in my town, there are basically 2 options. 1. If you want to busk on anything that's considered council property, you have to fill out a form, tell them the dates you want, get signed permission from the nearest business owner, and give it to the council with $21. If it's Christmas time, which it was, there's a similar process that requires you book much further ahead, which I always forget to do. 2. Go somewhere that isn't council property and just ask permission. The place I was busking today was one of those places, and their only 2 rules are that it's first come, first served, and you can't be like, "Hey you, give me money please." So, this was the first week before Christmas, and there's always a lot of competition around that time of year. I busk all year long, as it helps make me known in the community, and I'm trying to build a music career. And also because it helps supplement my disability pension. I was busking as usual when an entitled mother came up to me. Her kid was like 11ish and was carrying a violin case. She asked me how long I'd be, and I'd only just started, so I told her several hours. I usually go about 4 hours, but sometimes I'm tired and want to leave early. She seemed annoyed, but goes back to her car. Comes back 2 hours later. By this time I had already called someone to come pick me up, but they couldn't make it until 3. It was 2:30, so I figured I'd just keep going and collapse once in the car. Yem comes up to me with her kid in tow.
"Are you done yet? You said you'd be 2 hours.
I said I'd be several hours.
You've been here all day. It's not fair for you to be here all day, because then no one else gets a chance."
I'll be leaving at 3.
He has an appointment at 3.
Wondering why that's my problem. Okay, I can't leave any earlier. She doesn't argue anymore, but is grumbling as she walks away. Like, I get the kid wants an opportunity. In Australia, our big between-school year break starts about a week before Christmas, so he doesn't get as much opportunity before that. But this is basically my only method of saving any money, or even really having enough to get by. The kid has 6 weeks on holidays left, and it's first in, best served. I thought about suggesting other good busking places, but she was already halfway back to the car. Hellfreezer's note. As a possible another way in maximizing the experience of your busking, I would suggest, if you can do it safely so that it won't be stolen, set up a camera and feed the audio into that and record your performances as a busker. You could then upload them to, YouTube, that's a platform, or any others you may think of. It might help build a following there if you don't already do that, because I know a lot of buskers do. And I've discovered some pretty good artists that way. 2. I am currently planning a wedding for May of this year. For some context, mother-in-law and I don't have the best relationship. I don't think she is a terrible person, but she is annoying. She wants to be a princess. She is just spoiled, for lack of a better word. Her husband is kind of a dick, but hey, he loves her and makes her happy, so for the most part we ignore it. Mother-in-law's husband is a cosmetic surgeon, and my BFF worked for him for 1.5 years as a nurse. She recently left the practice under bad circumstances when he asked her to do something that was not her job description, and she stood up for herself. Basically, mother-in-law stopped by the office and he was giving her some Botox. Mother-in-law doesn't like needles and apparently wasn't feeling well, though neglected to mention this, so I guess she saw the needle go in a mirror, and she projectile vomited all over him and the office. Now BFF is a nurse, so vomit doesn't really bother her, but still, ew. Mother-in-law was so embarrassed she began to cry, so her husband cleaned her up, told her it was okay, and then asked BFF to clean up the mess. BFF said mother-in-law should clean it up, and if she can't, she is his wife. Custodian wasn't in at that time. He snapped at her that he is her boss, and if he says it is her job, it is her job. She refused and said, his princess. Yeah, mother-in-law has annoyed an entire private practice. Could clean it up. Mother-in-law began crying, again. and he screamed at BFF that she is just a nurse. She quit, and he left the vomit there. You. Now the issue is BFF is my maid of honor and does not want to see him. She expressed to me that she still feels humiliated and demeaned by his behavior, and she is anxious about seeing him. BFF is the second most important person in my life after my fiancé, so to me it was an easy decision. I uninvited him. Mother-in-law called me up furious and said I was humiliating her as they are a social unit, and she does not want to see her ex-husband without him. She is concerned people will talk, and says she will feel awkward and have no one to talk to. I told her I get her concerns, but ultimately my maid of honor is my BFF, and he was being a toxic boss. Also note, everyone there makes fun of both of them behind their backs because of how he treats mother-in-law, and her whole wannabe princess thing. They're just cringe. Mother-in-law began getting emotional, and accused my fiancé of being a crummy son and said we should care about her happiness, and we should like him because he's the only person who loves her. She hung up and is now refusing to come. I explained the situation to a few other people to get perspective, and now mother-in-law is furious because she says I humiliated her by telling everyone about her throwing up. She is currently not talking to her son. Now, I don't know if I'm being petty or mean because I don't like these people. I personally would not want to attend a wedding without my significant other, but I also don't want to give in to her tantruming on her weird marriage. Hellfreezer's note. I have a few thoughts here. Now, if the OP's best friend, the maid of honor, could get around to the notion of attending the wedding with him there, standing tall, proud, and confident, and barely acknowledging his existence, that would probably be more of a dig than anything else. However, that may not be possible, and that's fair enough. But ultimately, it sounds like the problem fixed itself. Mother-in-law's husband isn't coming. Mother-in-law disinvited herself. Have a great wedding, enjoy your honeymoon. 3. So it seems as though my mother-in-law and her husband believe I'm taking their son away from them. This isn't entirely the case, as yes, I am, in that he's choosing me over them. He's choosing my comfort and our children over his parents' tantrums. But here's the thing. In the beginning, I made sure to include them in my pregnancy. They didn't care. I reminded my husband to send them photos and updates. They didn't care. When we announced, they didn't congratulate me or my husband. I gave birth and I went to their house freshly postpartum so they could see my baby and take photos. They pouted because I didn't pass my baby around. We moved far away for my husband's new job, and all of a sudden my mother-in-law went feral. We came back to visit them now, and my husband's dad said we're holding grudges when we have boundaries. When my husband confronted his dad, my father-in-law was glaring at me from yards away at a park. When we ended our visit, mother-in-law shouted, "You can't get rid of me!" I don't feel good about that. My father-in-law said that my mother-in-law worships my oldest son. When we came down, they said they needed to see the babies. Not want, need. That made me uneasy, but I still push up for them and go. My mother-in-law and father-in-law blindsided me when my husband was preoccupied with our other child, and I was walking our toddler, and interrogated me about my own birth giver. Why I was no contact. They've never had more than a couple actual conversations with me. To me, this says they think I am pushing my husband away from them. My father-in-law says, "But she's a part of you, like mother-in-law." Sir, no. I ended the conversation. I sent them a message, after saying it was lovely to see them, but the topic of my no-contact parent was an off-limits subject, and I have separated them permanently and everyone who associates with them. They're a narcissist, so there won't ever be peace as my entire family are flying monkeys. I'm at a loss. Nothing I've done is good enough. The entire time at the park, my mother-in-law hovered over my shoulder. If I stopped, she'd be bumping into me while walking. She chased my toddler around and nearly got him hit by a kid on a bicycle. And she was drunk, so, I want normal, healthy grandparent relationships, but I don't know if it's possible at this point. I would like to add that the chasing wasn't playful. My toddler met her when he was a baby and doesn't recognize her, and she was chasing him down to get attention and affection. And second, I invited them up to visit when I had a baby and was pregnant, and they said no. Now they're hounding us to visit, acting like I've kept them away. 4. I am married to my husband for about 3 years now, but we've been together much more. I only met his mom when we got engaged, and she really seemed to like me in the beginning. The thing is, we had a baby some months ago, and now I cannot seem to stand her at all. Please help me realize if I'm in the wrong here. That all of this is just her way to show her love as a mom or as a grandma. She is a very particular woman. Even my husband acknowledges it and finds it a bit tiring. But since we live abroad, we always let things slide. I'm going to add some examples so you can see what I mean. Up until our engagement, she always hoped my husband would return to our home country. She mentions it all the time now as well. She even joked once that we can be deported with the left rising almost everywhere. We're in the process of citizenship, and mind you, if we weren't abroad, our families back home would struggle. She thinks I'm not a good enough housewife for her son. She always wants to know what I made for dinner and then tells me how to cook it. My husband has shut this completely down now, and she still comments something passive-aggressive. She underestimates everyone, and I mean everyone. No one and nothing is good enough for her. You're complimenting someone, she finds something bad of them to talk about. You buy her a gift, she'll tell you I don't need it, return it to the store. She made me cry once, not in her face, 'cause I bought her a food processor for her kitchen that my mom suggested and loved using. I couldn't wait to give it to her, and she literally felt offended because apparently she is not old and can use her own hands to do what a food processor does. When she and father-in-law visited us after the baby was born, she would be over my head the whole time. Time to change the baby, let's get up and see. Time to give baby a bath, let's get up and see. Time to give the baby a bottle, let's get up on our feet and see. My baby cried a lot during witching hour, and out of the blue she says to them,
"Don't cry, Nana, or else Mommy is going to spank you."
Now I know that a baby doesn't understand, and we come from a culture where spanking is normal, but I could never do that to my own child. How can you say that to a newborn even? She will 100% do what's on her mind. I've seen her fight with my father-in-law, who is an angel on earth, because he and the whole family were against something, and she still found a way to do it. She only talks about herself or her family. It's like she's trying to convince me that they're good people. They indeed are, but you cannot have a normal conversation with her if the conversation isn't around her. Now, previously, I've always said she is what she is, and I really don't care about her behavior. I saw her rarely, and she always gave me gifts and cooked for me. She always used to call me and ask how I'm doing. I am really, really thankful, but now I cannot seem to stand her, because it's also my child in between. I do not want her behavior or her words to have an impact on my baby. Give it to me straight, guys, am I overreacting? Is this just her type, and not really a big deal? Am I still a postpartum mess? Is she just sad that we don't live near them, and she can't enjoy her son and our baby? That's what I keep telling to myself. But every day my husband talks to them on the phone. I find myself judging every single word she says, even if she says good morning. No contact is out of the question. I don't want to break my husband and father-in-law's heart, and I want my baby to enjoy them as grandparents too. How can I see past these comments, even? Hellfreezer's note. Personally speaking, I don't think you're overreacting. Your mother-in-law definitely seems to have some toxic behaviors. And, well, I don't think it's funny to joke about spanking a child, certainly not a newborn. I'm sure mother-in-law wouldn't like it if you were joking about spanking her. Of course, I don't know what the lady's into, so far be it from me to judge. 5. This story takes place when I was 10 years old, but I still remember it vividly, due to me and my best friend Nick laughing about it to this very day. For context, my best friend Nick invited me to his Christmas party. It was on the 6th of December, so naturally I was excited about all the new Skylanders I could get for Christmas, as well as the party. Back then, I was 10 years old. Skylanders was one of the hottest games back in 2012. Now on to the story. I remember we were going to play Skylanders Giants, which was the most recent game that came out at the time. I remember bringing all of my Skylanders to Nick's house. Now, my best friend Nick had all the Skylanders at the time. This is how our conversation went. Whoa, how did you get all those new Skylanders?
I just started doing chores for people in the neighborhood, and I used the money to buy all the new Skylanders.
Dude, your collection is epic.
Thanks, man.
We're now playing Skylanders Giants. We were laughing and having a good time. It was perfect. Half an hour later, Nick recognizes a familiar voice saying in an obnoxious tone, "I'm here." As soon as we hear this, Nick's laughter fades. I ask him if he's okay. This is how our conversation went. "Nick, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Nick, with anger and fear in his voice, says,
"No, I'm not okay. This is not happening."
"Nick, what is wrong?"
"My aunt is here with my cousin."
"What's the big deal? It can't be that bad, right?"
"No, you don't understand. My aunt is crazy entitled. If I have anything before her hellspawn does, she yells and screams until I either get rid of it or give it to him."
"Oh, okay. Let's just play the game. It'll help get your mind off things."
"Okay."
Not even 5 minutes later, do we hear a knock on the door? Surprise, surprise, it's the entitled aunt and her hellspawn. Her hellspawn makes a beeline for Nick's and my Skylanders. He excitedly tells his mom he wants all the Skylanders that Nick and I have. Entitled aunt starts asking questions, such as how much did all of these cost, etc. Once I told her the price of all of them, Nick and I start to have a conversation with the entitled aunt. This is how our conversation went. "Well, my gift budget is already stretched. Can you both just give me your Skylanders?" Nick and I both say no, we spent a lot of money on these. We can't just give them to you.
"Mommy, I want all these Skylanders right now."
Entitled aunt is yelling at this point. "See, you're making my son upset. I hope you know that you're ruining his Christmas. As I already said to you, we can't give you our Skylanders." She's yelling even louder at this point, and I'm starting to see red with this woman. Nick's mom comes into the room because of the noise and wonders what is going on. The EM, in classic entitled parent fashion, starts spewing lies about me and Nick to try and cover herself and make me and Nick look like the bad guys. Nick's mom is not believing anything that entitled aunt says, and we tell our side of the story. This is how the conversation went. "Alright boys, what really happened?" Me and Nick say that entitled aunt and entitled kids are Skylanders, and the aunt asked if we could give them to the entitled kid. We said no, she got mad. I thought so. The entitled aunt is beat red at this point and starts to make a run for it. We share a laugh and continue to play the game and enjoy the party. I had a great time at the party, if you were wondering. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to The Impractical Proudness of Parents, Ipop, episode 126. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button. If you'd like to get early access to these videos, and that's easy enough, you can support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. You'll also find links there taking you to the Hellfreezer Discord and to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring. And of course, you can leave a tip for this video if you especially enjoyed it by hitting the heart with a $sign underneath, although you don't have to do any of that. I do appreciate it. Okay, as there's no other business today, let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: do you get more satisfaction from pursuing a dream or a goal than you do actually achieving it? Speaking personally for me, I like to achieve my goals, because you can always have something new to pursue later, something new to keep you going and excite you. But if you never get there, well, I don't think the point is always the journey. Although the journey can be fun, you've got to have a destination. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, we'll have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this answer was in relation to those water bottle crazes. Like, do you own any of them? Do you like them? That sort of thing. I came down on the side of I think they're good and useful, but I don't necessarily pursue something because of a brand name. I just want something good that's going to last for a while. And today's answer comes from Surat. And they say, I haven't actually bought any of the metal insulated cups or bottles, but I own about 7 of them, mostly door prizes from work parties. And just a note about the recent Stanley Cup craze, that's why it sounded familiar. Stanley Cup, I think, is actually a cup in, I want to say football or something like that, maybe rugby. I'm not a sport guy. I'm not into sports ball, what can I say? If you own one of those, you need to be careful, because there's a good chance it's contaminated by lead. I'd heard that. I don't know how accurate it is, because I haven't looked into it myself, but I'd seen that pop up in the news. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.